Hi, Jennifer. It's so great to be here with you. Would you give us a tour?
I would love to. Welcome to our new 20-acre regenerative farm that we have been stewarding for 11 months today. This has been a huge work in progress.
Wait, 11 months and you've got this much planted? That's pretty impressive.
Thank you. It's been a lot, but it's been so rewarding. We have our dahlia field over here, and then where we'll walk first is a mix of perennials, biennials, and our annuals that we grow for wholesale, and our CSA. And then we have our dahlia breeding program, our named dahlias, and then we actually have a few vegetables growing this year too. So come along.
Oh, this is wonderful. I remember last time I spoke with you, you had just got your irrigation in. This was like maybe 3 months ago?
Yes. We weren't able to start planting till June. Right where we are standing, you can see where there's a lack of weeds. Was where the irrigation was, and it was mounded up where you couldn't even access the field until it was all done. So it has been a huge scramble to get it planted so that we have flowers this year. But there's proof that they're growing.
I love it. Well, tell me about what you're trying to do here with regenerative farming. Are you happy with the soil, or are there things that you've been able to do or you hope to do to get it to where you want it to be?
So we were inspired to buy this property after watching Kiss the Ground. We hadn't seen Common Ground at the time. We saw Kiss the Ground last July. And when we saw it, we were really inspired by the idea of prioritizing soil health and showing that you can make a difference on a small piece of land. And 20 acres is not small to me, but in the bigger scheme of things, it still is a small impact.
Yeah.
But we've been looking for land in Hood River, and Hood River is so expensive that we realized when we were looking at smaller properties, we were competing with everyone that wanted a big green grass lawn. So for about the same price as 2 acres, we were able to get 20 acres of farmland. And when we saw this property, the knapweeds were about chest high, and you couldn't even walk this property. My husband said, there's no way, this is so much work. And my daughter, as we're walking the property, I have this cute video from a year ago, and she goes, why are we still here? You're the only one that likes this place. And that night we watched Kiss the Ground, and my family saw the potential here, and we realized this is our chance to do something for our community. We can heal this ground. I mean, at the time, we couldn't even get a shovel in the ground. The knapweed covers probably 75% of this property. And we didn't really know what we were getting into. It was just one of those things that pulls you, and you're like, this is it. We're going to dive in 110%. Wow. And one of the things we did was we hired a soil agronomist, and we hired Jen Aaron of Raven Farms, which is awesome because years ago, she was the first regenerative farmer that I ever followed. And she's about 45 minutes away from here. And so this spring she came out, and we did every soil test you could possibly do, including a soil analysis where we took a spade in the ground to see what kind of soil structure we were even starting with. And then we did all of the standard PK and N tests. We tested the Haney test. I think we did a total of 5. We did tissue analysis of the plants. And then Jen came up with a plan for what nutrients we needed to amend the soil with. Being that we have 20 acres, it's not possible to do that. To all of it, cost prohibitive for us right now. So we started with 1 acre that we have amended the soil. We did put down cover crops. So going on this side of the driveway down, we have about 2.5 acres when the FDA or USDA mapped out our land that are in cover crop right now. And so we had 1 round of fall cover crop that we terminated, and now we have a summer cover crop that's just starting to grow. It's about 2 inches tall right now. And then we'll cut that down this fall and hopefully continue planting down that direction. But our soil, in terms of looking at the soil, there was no microbial life. In good soil, you want to find about 20 worms per spade. We found 4.
Wow.
And our compaction, depending on where we tested, it was anywhere from 3 to 6 inches deep, all the way down to 20 inches. So we believe, we don't have the history of this land. We believe that from years of tilling and haying and having animals on it, that it was just over farmed.
Right.
And the land is very compacted because we also have a lot of water issues. we had no idea how much standing water would be on this property.
Oh my goodness. So you had to kind of start somewhere, and that was with this acre.
Yes.
And you need to monetize this land. So you wanted to get to market.
Exactly.
So what we're seeing behind you is literally your first annual row crops.
It is.
Okay, so let's see what you've got here and talk a little bit about how you said last Saturday was your first farmers market. Like you're finally getting paid for your flowers.
I am. It felt so good. I sold my first wholesale, not ever, because this is my 7th year selling flowers, but first on our new land. So it kind of feels like starting over with a bunch of experience.
Right.
But we harvested our first buckets of flowers. We went to the farmer's market. We're doing 3 markets this year. The market had a few openings and invited us. And I thought, what a great way to let the community know about our new location.
Tell us, you said you're not in Hood River, but you're outside of Hood River, right?
We are on D Highway, which technically is Odell, which is an unincorporated small town. So like our driver's license, all of that, when we eventually move here, will still say Hood River. We're on what's called the Hood River Fruit Loop.
Okay.
So if you've ever come out to Hood River County and you've visited the orchards, you've probably passed by our farm, and when you round the corner, there's this gorgeous view of Mount Hood. We don't have I reached out to Dr. Hammett, and if you don't know who Dr. Hammett is, Dr. Keith Hammett is one of the early breeders of dahlias. He's been breeding them, I think, since the 1950s, and he's on the North Island in Auckland, and I got to spend the day with him touring his breeding patch. He sat down with me, we went through notes, and he gave me advice for how I might want to structure my breeding program going forward, and it was so helpful and so insightful. So I made a few changes to my program, and right now we are standing in my first year dahlia seedlings. There is one row that is not my first year, so these are actually...
don't look at these,
those
but
are
look over here.
varieties. These ones starting here, I have 5 rows. There's 1,200 seedlings that are all saved from seeds last year. The majority of them are seeds saved from existing dahlias in my breeding program. And so I've been breeding for specific traits. And within that, each one of these is a brand new seed. So if someone is new to saving dahlia seeds, a dahlia tuber will produce an identical plant to the parent. A dahlia seed is a complete mystery. And because dahlias are octoploids, their genetics are so wide that it could be a complete crapshoot of what you're going to get. You might have a white dahlia and end up with a red dahlia, or you could get a bright yellow dahlia. And so it's really a numbers game. So now that I have space, and I know for some 1,200 is a lot, others 1,200 is just a drop in the bucket. But for me, this is a lot. I've never done more than 600 first year seedlings at a time. There's a couple good ones. There's a lot that will get tossed, but it's so fun. It's like Christmas morning coming out here, and now it's a little bit harder because I can't wake up and walk out with my cup of coffee, but I'm driving here first thing in the morning and walking the rows, and they literally only started blooming a week ago. So it's so fun.
It's early, yeah. You mentioned that you will at least want to see 2 flowers per plant.
Yes.
Before you make any judgment, right?
Normally, I'll usually make some sort of judgment. Like sometimes I'll yank them after one flower, but I'm finding that the soil, my dahlias aren't quite happy in this soil. They're not growing terribly, but they're not growing as well as they did at our last farm. And so I've had a lot of open-centered, even on my named varieties. So I'm waiting to see. We've had really hot temperatures. We've had a lot of irrigation leaks because of coyotes. So I want to see as it gets closer to September how they're doing. And then September will probably be a mass exodus of dahlia seedlings.
Out of these 1,200, roughly how many do you think you'll save for growing next year?
The goal is to take 10 to 20 of them on to the next year.
Okay. Wow.
So
and there's one, every one of them is distinctly different. So you have
different.
A very small percentage will get selected for next year.
Exactly. But if you walk over here with me, this is my first year ever saving anemone seeds. And it's really interesting to watch the characteristics come out in each dahlia, because some of them are so different. And like this one, I highly doubt will be kept. I know I said I wait to see a second bloom. Something like that I would probably yank on the first bloom. I just haven't had time. But what's fascinating is that same dahlia produced this anemone right here.
Oh, wow.
And also produced this anemone right here.
Oh, my goodness.
As well as this one here. So you can see the spectrum
Oh, my goodness.
is so vast. But something like this maybe will be kept. I've never been a huge anemone fan, but things I'll look for is I'm going to shake it. And so I want good stem attachment. So it's not a bobblehead, where that one's a little bit of a bobblehead, where if I was to put that in a bouquet, I'd be worried about it popping off like that.
Yeah. It's pretty though.
It is pretty. This kind of reminds me of an egg.
So a gardener might want it, but a cut flower farmer will not.
Yes.
Yeah.
My breeding goals are to breed cut flowers. My main business has always been the wedding industry, because we are a huge wedding destination. And I'm nervous to even say this. We're not sure if we want this to be a wedding venue or not someday. I worked as a wedding photographer for 12 years. So I've seen what it's like to have people on a property. I can say at least for the next 8 years while our daughter's at home, this won't be a wedding venue. But I do have dreams of like farm to table dinners and things like that out here. So I'm trying to envision event flowers growing more than garden dahlias.
Well, event flowers, if not for your events, to sell to other florists.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Here's another anemone. This is kind of fun for me because I've never grown anemones before, and it's amazing how many of them are coming out.
I'm going to try to cast shade on it so we can really see it. I love it.
But it's amazing, like that came from Rockstar, which is a dark red anemone. But you can see not all of them are producing anemones, because this one here is clearly not an anemone.
But I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
I like the hot pink tips on the darker maroon.
But the genetics are so fascinating. You just don't know what you'll get. Or, I mean, you look at like this one has really light green stems, and this one has a darker stems. And so it was really fascinating getting to talk with Dr. Hammett, because one of the things that he opened my eyes to, where I've always looked at the flower and I've been like, okay, I'm going to toss it because I don't like the flower. He had a patch in his garden where he actually was breeding. He would have 5 clustered together. And one of them was this really bright yellow next to all these other flowers. And I asked him, I said, why do you have this yellow next to these? And he said, I forget if it was the stem or the leaves. But he goes, I find if it has a characteristic I like, I will breed down the line. And that just opened my eyes of how the breeding down the line.
So he'll put that plant with excellent foliage or stems with plants that have flowers he desires and hope that they will cross.
Exactly.
That's
and
fabulous.
It could take years going down the line, but it's kind of like these anemones have these really unique leaves, and almost all of them from the seed have the same similar leaves. So
that might be worth hanging on to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Take us over to where you have 1 and 2 year old seedlings. So that's
Absolutely.
From an earlier selection, right?
Yes. And we don't have many blooming over there yet. My tubers have a much slower start than the seedlings.
So Jennifer, you will be selling tubers or not? You have a whole dahlia program, right?
I don't know if I will be selling tubers or not again this year. We held off this year. We'd done an online tuber sale. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 years in a row. And because we had this new space, we suddenly had limitless space to fill. So we decided to fill our space versus selling them. Partly
just to build up your tuber inventory, I guess, huh?
Exactly. Well, part of it was to fill up our inventory. Part of it was honestly, I just didn't have the bandwidth.
Yep.
And I was actually dividing dahlias until Mother's Day this year. So these are my named varieties, and you can see everything's really small.
Sure.
We have an empty row because we had, some people may know from social media, we had a killdeer lay a nest and we didn't disrupt the nest. So probably this week we'll be planting sunflowers to fill our empty gap. Either that or we might plant some buckwheat just as a cover crop and bring in the bees that way.
You let Mother Nature have some priority.
Exactly. I'm excited with some of my 2nd and 3rd year seedlings to do a little bit of an experiment and pinch every other one in a variety so I could see what happens when they're not pinched as well as when they are pinched. So there's a wasp on that right now, but this is a 3rd year seedling. And of course I haven't disbudded. There's been no time for that.
The center's so beautiful though.
But this one, it has almost this blush in the very center tips.
Yep.
This has been a great flower, really popular with our florists. I should have just budded, so there was just one.
Oh, you'll get to it.
But by September, it will look great.
Well, this is exciting. How many do you have over here?
I have not gone through to do the final count.
Okay.
I believe there's about 1,000, not 1,000 varieties, but 1,000 tubers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I have about 60 varieties between 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. And a lot of my 2nd and 3rd, I need to narrow down even more because I didn't narrow any of the 3rd year, or what were 2nd year last year, because we bought the farm in the middle of summer and it was such chaos. I just saved all of them. And so this year I need to get a little more selective.
Yes, you have a lot to do this winter.
And then we'll be able to start taking cuttings of the ones we're keeping to multiply. Right now I have about 5 to 10 of each variety. And the goal is to grow that up to about 100 of each variety before releasing them.
That's great.
So, but you can see there's a lot of buds, but not a lot of flowers. There's a few flowers up here.
Well, if people want to know what you're doing, they need to follow you on Instagram and you'll be posting.
Yes.
So in a month, it'll look a lot different here.
It will look a lot different in a month. It's been hard too because so many of them have blown their centers this year that never had blown centers before.
Oh, you mentioned that, yeah. You think it's because of the soil, perhaps?
I think it's the soil, especially some areas we've seen some burning because we scattered the amendments by hand with the seed. You carry it on your shoulder bag. It's meant for cover cropping, but we also scattered a lot of the amendments. So I don't think they're evenly distributed yet. So some areas, like, we think that this is maybe a nutrient imbalance, but we're keeping an eye.
Yeah.
Where you can see where it's burning, but the one next,
they look
is
fine.
Healthy and it's the same variety. So.
Well, listen, let's go down and sit in the shade and talk a little bit about your other big news.
That would be lovely.
Okay. So Jennifer, you were kind enough to invite me to be on the Backyard Bouquet Podcast.
Yes.
And that was such a wonderful experience. I'm turning the tables on you today.
Thank you.
And letting you be the guest, and I get to ask the questions, okay?
I appreciate it. This is so fun. I've loved having you here.
We have had a full day of touring all that Jennifer's doing here and talking about her dreams and plans. And I just want to share some of that to inspire everyone who's listening and watching about what happens when you say, why not? Why not me? Why can't I do this? And how can I do it? And so why don't you quickly introduce the Flowering Farmhouse and give us a snapshot of what it is today, and then we'll talk about how you got here and what your big plans are.
Absolutely. Well, the Flowering Farmhouse is a cut flower farm in Hood River, Oregon, and we are prioritizing sustainable, locally grown flowers with an emphasis on dahlias.
That's wonderful. Jennifer, this is your second or your third farming area? I can't remember from your story.
Well, we grew over time.
Okay.
So in 2018, we bought what was our white farmhouse, and that's how we became the Flowering Farmhouse. So now I feel like we're kind of tied into having a farmhouse again, which is okay with me. But we had 1/3 of an acre, and we grew slowly, which was great because it really allowed me to learn and get comfortable with the space before moving on to the next piece. So we went from our 1/3 acre, and I'm talking about we grew on about 2,000 feet.
This was your backyard bouquet?
Yes.
Okay.
It was literally, well, it was actually our front yard triangle. We had this unusable space in our front yard. And I had brought all my dahlias from my last house, and I had 280 something dahlias to plant. And then I added some flowers around it.
But you had another job. This was your fun weekend or garden off time.
Yes,
activity.
It was my side hustle. You could really say, I mean, I loved flowers, and I was like, you can make money selling flowers. I was a wedding photographer, a newborn photographer for 12 years.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so from that house, you found another piece of property, right?
Well, our neighborhood was in a newer development area. So behind us, my neighbor Becca had just under an acre, and she had a 1/4 acre that had previously been her vegetable garden. And as she'd gotten promoted through her job, she's now the head dentist for a local hospital or doctor's office in town. And she no longer had time to keep it up. And so I noticed it had just been vacant. So I asked her, I said, are you using this? She said, no. And so she said, I would love for you to grow flowers. So we created an arrangement where I contributed to the water bill, and I provided her with weekly flowers. And I got my start. That was my true start, is growing flowers on her space in 2019.
That makes sense because you said you're in your 7th season. So
yes. And then from there, I sold, because that was right. Actually, I'm sorry. We grew in our yard in 2019. 2020 is when I went into Becca's field and COVID hit.
Okay.
And my wedding and newborn business literally shut down. My newborn studio, we had built this house so that my newborn studio could be part of the house so that I didn't have to pay for childcare and Olivia could be home with me. And my newborn studio became my seed starting studio overnight. And I sold every stem that I could harvest that summer.
You're so right. I mean, COVID was this explosion of demand from home gardeners, flower lovers. Who were you selling to?
I had a CSA, and I think I had about 20 something people on it that first year, which was a lot for my first year. But it was so great because for so many of them, it was their only connection. I was masked up, but they would wave through the window and I would put it in their vase on their doorstep. And that was literally their connection. And then I wholesaled, but there wasn't much wholesale that first year.
Because there were no weddings,
There weren't the weddings. There was a few. I was still doing wedding photography then. So I'd had a few elopements. Some people said, well, I still want to get married, especially like people that were in the service. They kept their weddings, but they were just immediate family.
Yeah.
And that was a challenge in of itself. But it really catapulted my business that year. So the following year, my other neighbor, the sweetest 95-year-old lady, well, she passed away 2 years ago, unfortunately, at 95 years of age.
Okay, so she's a few years earlier than that.
Yes, she was like a grandmother to me and so kind. She had 2 acres that backed up to our house, and it was just a big open field. And I asked her, I said, what would you think about me expanding my business and growing flowers here? She said, that would be lovely. My husband used to grow flowers here. She's like, it would be like he's looking down and smiling. And so it was this really beautiful setup on both sides of our property. We were growing flowers, and my neighbors, both of them were so kind. And we had to put up a fence between our property and our neighbor's property so that other people wouldn't walk into the flower field because it looked like a big open space.
Sure.
And so we purposely built a low fence to keep people out, but so people could see what we were doing. And people started altering their walks. People would stop. I had one neighbor who was in a wheelchair going through some chemotherapy at the time, and her daughter would push her, and she would sit and she would watch the flowers. And just the joy it brought people was so amazing that I literally fell head over heels with the flowers because it's so powerful. Like,
so many people can relate to your story.
Yeah.
You don't plan for it.
No, I mean, I've loved flowers all my life. Yes. And it's funny, like in hindsight, this saying that life only makes sense looking backwards. It's like I have done so many random jobs that you would think are not connected, but yet they all led me to here.
That's so beautiful. I love that. You had already named the business by then.
Yes.
You were dabbling in your dahlia breeding program.
Yes.
And did you think, well, we'll stay living here and we'll still continue to use our generous neighbors' borrowed land, and that's enough for me? Or what catapulted you to here?
It was interesting. Part of us had always been looking for land because we didn't own that land, and it was really important to us because I never went heavy on perennials. I did plant peonies, and I had some perennials that I'd started from seed, but I didn't invest in hydrangeas and 9-bark and all of that because it wasn't my land, and I couldn't put anything permanent there. So we were always looking, but Hood River is very expensive. People joke that we're like the Aspen or Vale of Colorado here in Oregon because we're a destination, we're a tourism spot.
People move here for the quality of life if they're into outdoor activities.
Exactly. Yeah. And during COVID, we were on like every top 10 adventure town to move to. So it just skyrocketed our prices. Great for bringing in business for tourism businesses. But if you were trying to buy a house in this town or land, it was so challenging. So part of me deep down really wanted to be able to stay and farm at that spot forever because people were altering their walks. We were next to the school. I could hear the school children walk by. I could bring buckets or wagonfuls of flowers for kids to play with at school. And so I felt like at the time, I thought that was what I was supposed to be doing. but the universe had other plans.
Sure.
And so, and my neighbor, she always told me, she's like, I really believe there's something better for you. And I was like, no, this is amazing. Like, this is going to be it. And then she passed away very unexpectedly, and the family had other plans for the land, which is completely their right. It's their land.
Of course.
So we had to vacate, and we didn't know what we were going to do.
And this was in 2024?
In 2020, end of my season 2023.
Okay.
It was in the middle of November. We were getting ready to go to Costa Rica for my 40th birthday, and I got the notice that I had to be out of the field. And so what was supposed to be my celebration birthday trip was all of a sudden, because travel is very important to us. Yeah. We've traveled a lot. I just love seeing the world, and I get so much inspiration from visiting different places. And so we decided, my husband, who always has such a good head on his shoulders, just said, this is going to be our pivot trip. We're going to go relax. We're going to figure out what's next, and we're going to come back, and we will figure it out. And so we went, and we're like, I think we're going to have to move. And so we made the decision that we were going to have to sell our house. And because we realized we'd made offers on other farms, but we didn't have funds available. We were always a contingent buyer on land that we were trying to buy. We'd love to buy this, but we're going to have to sell our house. And Hood River was a hot market. They didn't want that kind of offer.
You almost had to sell and then have the proceeds ready to go.
Exactly.
On a dime. Yeah, yes. Turn on a dime, yeah.
And so I was like, but I'm not going to have anywhere to farm. And my husband was like, well, maybe you'll have to take a step back for a couple years. And I was devastated. And so I decided to launch a podcast because I was like, I can at least stay connected to the community. I love the flower community. I've learned so much, met so many amazing friends and humans through this industry. I was like, I have to stay connected. So that was why I started the podcast. It was my lifeline to stay connected.
Was that in the winter of 23-24?
Over Christmas break.
Okay.
I put it together. I took Jenna Kutcher's podcasting course, and I launched a podcast in 2 weeks, and it went live the first week of January.
So you've done that for about a year and a half?
About a year and a half now.
That's great.
Thank you. And I mean, but it's because of talking to people that I started asking, well, if they can do it, why can't I? And I realized there was more possible than I was seeing. I was my limiting abilities. I mean, nothing was limiting us except for my limiting thoughts. I was telling myself, well, I need to stay small. I was looking at 2-acre properties. And it was actually last year in June, my daughter and I went to visit my parents when school got out for 3 days, because I never leave for more than 3 days in the summer. And my husband calls me and he says, Jen, there's this beautiful 2-acre parcel for sale. And we look at it, and I felt my jaw just dropped open when I saw the price. And I'm like, that is so much for 2 acres. It sold within 24 hours over asking price. Wow. And that was when I realized, I was like, I think we have to broaden our horizons, because we are becoming a gateway town to Portland. People that want a second home or don't mind commuting an hour are looking for a big green grass lawn that gives them some privacy from their neighbors. And that was who we were competing with, is people that didn't want to grow a commodity or an experience. They were wanting just some privacy.
Sure.
And so I realized, okay, we need to start looking for farmland. And it was from a few guests that I had talked to that had larger parcels. And I would ask them, how do you farm 20 acres? And they're like, we don't. We steward this land, but we're only farming on an acre. And I realized I don't have to farm
20 full acres.
20 full acres. I can care for the land, and I can grow and have space that grows with our business. So we opened up our Zillow search and said, okay, there's no cap on what size we're looking for. And a whole series of serendipitous events happened. We got an off-market offer on our house. We had an opportunity for an easy place to go to live. And literally the week we were closing on our house, this property was on the market. And it had been on the market, but I hadn't seen it because I wasn't looking.
Right. You were in town. You weren't out 15 minutes outside. Yeah. I love that. And this land, you said earlier on our tour, it had been over-farmed.
Yes.
It had some negatives, but you still saw the potential.
There was trash everywhere. The house had been caught on fire. It was burned. My husband came down with me. Well, I first drove down. I saw the listing, and I loaded my daughter in the car that day. And it was kind of a dreary day. And I drove down the driveway, and it was just, you know, when you just feel it in you and you're like, this is it. And I'm driving up the driveway, and there's this rainbow behind me, and I just couldn't shake this feeling. And so I brought my husband and daughter back the next day, and the weeds are chest high. You can't get out of the cars. You can't look at anything. You can barely drive down the driveway with all the weeds. And my husband's like, no way. And so we tell our realtor, I'm like, I think that I can convince TJ if we can get them to mow the field so we can actually walk and see. So we didn't want to walk through the weeds. There wasn't a fence. There's cougar activity.
You couldn't even see the terrain, really.
No, you couldn't see the potential at all. You just saw a sea of weeds. So they agreed to mow it. Around the same time, we watched Kiss the Ground. And we first walked the land, and it was so hot. It was a 96-degree day. And if you've ever been on land that isn't cared for, isn't watered, doesn't have much shade, we're sitting under one of our few trees on the property right now. It is scorching hot. It was probably 120 degrees on the ground.
And dusty.
And my husband's like, Jen, there is no way. This is way more work than we can tackle. And then my daughter, I have on camera, she says, Mom, why are we even still here? You're clearly the only one that likes this place.
The wisdom of a then 9-year-old,
yes,
right?
Exactly. And she's like dragging her body. It's so hot outside. And she's like, just get me out of here. And we go home that night and watch Kiss the Ground because someone that was listening to my podcast said I should listen to it. Otherwise, I would have never heard of it. And TJ, my husband, and I, we had tears in our eyes as it finished. And he looked at me and he said, I see your vision. This is our chance to make a difference.
That's beautiful. Okay, so 1 year or 11 months ago, this was tall with weeds and had, basically a blank slate, but needed to be cleaned up.
Yes.
You had a vision for doing something big. At the same time, because you were starting from scratch, you wanted to tackle another project. And I want you to tell us about that because it's just getting off the ground and people might want to get involved and support your new storytelling project.
Yes, thank you. So when we bought the property, I'd been telling my story throughout the process. I believe in being transparent. I think that when people know the highs and the lows, you have a realistic expectation of what something is. And I think that people can fall in love with it and relate. Also, I don't want to paint this pretty picture that farming is just all armfuls of flowers, though that is the reward and that's the best part of it.
That's the Pinterest board.
Yes,
farming.
Exactly. That's the Pinterest piece. But I had multiple people reach out to me after we bought the land and they said, I really hope you're going to show how you build this from the ground up. Well, my background is in photography and I've run cameras for videographers.
Yeah, you're a visual storyteller.
I'm a visual storyteller. It's what I've done my whole life. I did TV and radio as a kid. So it just felt natural. And I know people were saying, like, go on YouTube and tell your story. Well, I had just seen Kiss the Ground. I had just seen Biggest Little Farm. And I was like, there is nothing like this. I mean, Erin has her beautiful series on Floretta for farm, but there's nothing that shows building a flower farm from the ground up and what it takes. And I was like, well, if they can do this for vegetables, if they can do this for orchards, why can't we do this for flowers?
So, you saw that a feature-length documentary film was a way to tell your story, and it had not really been done in the floral space.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's not that I wanted to tell a story and put the spotlight on me. I want to tell the story of why do local flowers matter? Why do flower farmers work so hard to bring this beauty into the world? And why should we support this? And what does it do for the world? I mean, I am super passionate about soil health. So we are investing a ton of resources and a ton of energy into healing our soil. So I want to show people that when you focus on soil health, you heal the ground from the ground up. When you heal the earth from the ground up, starting with the soil, you're able to grow this really beautiful thing that can heal you, nourish you, and also spread with this ripple effect into your community and who knows how far. But flowers bring people together.
Yeah.
I mean, we all need food to eat, but the ripple effect that flowers can create is so powerful.
I agree.
That if we can tell that on a story, and I mean, I'm going to be putting my life on the line. Like, I've been asked, well, are you sure you want to have people see your failures? And it's like, yes, because I want them to see what's possible.
Yeah. Talking about regenerative practices, Can you simply, from my understanding, define what falls under that umbrella?
Sure.
Because I think that is something that's broader than just flowers.
Yes.
Other people will be interested in this.
And I think that in terms of regenerative is how do we farm in harmony with the earth and with Mother Nature. And so one thing that I really love about it is I've been diving into it to try and understand it more, because there's a lot more guidelines per se. If you're growing vegetables regeneratively, or if you're growing an orchard, there's not a lot for regenerative flower farming. There is a movement starting,
right,
but there's not a ton of information out there of guidelines. So, and it's not like we necessarily have animals, because one of the principles of regenerative agriculture usually is to use the animals to graze the land and things like that. But soil health is very important. Avoiding the use of chemicals. So we're not using any chemicals, no pesticides on our farm. And that's also very important to us. We're hoping to get salmon safe certified, because the Hood River, everything that we do runs directly into the Hood River.
I can tell there's a downward stream angle here.
Yes, and then there's a 100-foot drop, and then it's the river. So everything we do is directly affecting the salmon and the wildlife down below us. So there's those. Of course, now I'm blanking on putting everything in the right terms.
That's okay. I'm thinking about a winery I visited outside of Eugene a couple years ago for the podcast, and I interviewed the flower farmer there. But their whole farm, they use the term biodynamic, which I feel like is sort of harmonious with regenerative agriculture, isn't it?
It goes beyond.
Oh, okay. So it's like full circle, nothing leaves the farm, right?
Exactly. It's beyond organic. I'm not a biodynamic expert, but I know that you're making a lot of inputs and using natural resources, which is actually something that we're interested in, to add microbial life to the farm.
Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off. I think that those terms will be helpful to especially regenerative, helpful to define. So maybe we'll work on looking up a definition that we can put in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Because I think that people desire this. It's kind of like the whole no-till movement.
Exactly.
They desire to do these things, but they're not really sure what does it require. And it'll be instructive to really see how you're approaching it.
And no-till ties into regenerative. So regenerative is minimal disturbances to the soil.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't necessarily mean no-till. That is the goal with regenerative farming. But like for us, we had a hard pan at 3 inches. There was zero way to ever farm this property.
Yeah, you were describing
maybe if you had millions of dollars, you could bring in all the amendments and everything. But for someone like us to get started, we had to break open the soil. Our agronomist that we were working with described it as kind of open heart surgery. So it's
that's radical,
very abrasive on the earth. It's not something you want to do every year. But we had to let the earth breathe. You
had to have the surgery so you can start healing.
Exactly.
Got it. That's helpful. Yes. And I'm glad you brought up regenerative. I didn't mean to quiz you on it, because I think I know what it means, but it's helpful to talk it through. And this is going to be something that you'll really dive into in the documentary, right?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes. So soil health is going to be a huge piece of the documentary. We're working with an agronomist so that it's not me. I'm not trying to be the expert in this documentary at all. I mean, I have my knowledge of farming, but I'm bringing in experts. That's why we brought you out here today. We worked with Lenny Larkin has come out, and
you're the catalyst. You're incubating this amazing story with many voices.
Yes.
Your farm happens to be the case study.
Yes, exactly. But I want to show what's possible, because so many times there's an existing farm, but to show what it takes to, and I think that it will relate to people too. For anyone that wants to start something that doesn't know where to start, we don't have this all figured out. Yeah. I can't tell you what this 20 acres is going to look like in 3 or 5 years from now, but I'm going to take the first right step. And then once I have that part figured out, I'm going to take the next step. And I want to show people that as you take these steps, how healing it can be for the earth. So right now we're planning to film for 3 years. And the reason we've chosen 3 years is because we've been given that as an estimate for how long it will take for soil biology to start to improve, and that we can see a noticeable difference. Because I don't want to end the film just because we have beautiful flowers. I want to show that we're actually capturing carbon. We have the earthworms, we have biology. We are creating an ecosystem here on the farm that supports all life, not just us.
You want the shovel with the 20
Yes.
worms in it. So who is your filmmaker and how are you approaching this? How can people get involved?
Yes. So when I mentioned that I wanted to do a documentary, that week I went into the coffee shop and there was Michael Peterson, who got me into wedding photography. And I said, Michael has left wedding photography. He actually used to produce films. He worked in Hollywood as a filmmaker. And then he moved to the Gorge to raise his family and was doing wedding photography and has since kind of branched out and has been doing documentaries since 2016. And so I jokingly saw him in line. I said, hey, Michael, do you want to do a documentary with me? And he said, well, I'm actually wrapping up a film circuit right now. I can meet with you in about a week or two.
Wow.
So we met back
He took you totally seriously.
Yes. Well, he knows that I don't joke around with my ideas. We've worked together in the wedding business for years. So it's great because we have a working relationship. We've run cameras for each other in the past. And so I sat down with him for coffee and I said, this is what I want to do. He said, it sounds great, but we have to do this the right way. He's like, we're not just going to show up with a camera because he's filmed enough documentaries. So he said, we have to get fiscal sponsorship. We have to bring people along for the journey. So with our documentary, we just recently secured fiscal sponsorship through the International Documentary Association, which is a huge deal.
So that means you can receive grants and donations, and they have nonprofit status.
Correct.
Right?
So they're we can receive people can make tax deductible donations to support the film because the IDA, International Documentary Association, is the one that receives the donations, and then they allocate funds for the budget.
Yeah, and they've got the responsibility for that.
Yes, they report to the IRS. So it was quite a process to get approved for it. They had to vet our project.
That's great.
And it was great because they love it. They're like, we haven't seen anything like this. This is amazing to be telling this story. And I mean, what a better time with all of the tariffs that are going on right now and the need to support local farms. I think the world is hungry for this.
So obviously you've checked that box. That allows you then to start doing some raising seed money.
Correct.
For the film.
Yes.
And you're thinking about launching something soon.
Yes. So hopefully when this airs, we will have a crowdfunding campaign started. We have a much larger budget for a 3-year film project because to do this, none of the film is funding the farm. I want to be clear on that. So like our family is building the farm. I'm not doing the documentary to pay for our farm.
No,
100%.
That's really helpful to hear.
Because I know that there's been other documentaries that have used things to build out. That is not our case. Okay. We sold our house. We have the funds to build our farm, and some things may take longer because they're more expensive than we thought. The farm budget is to be able to pay Michael, to hire a second camera. There's so many licensing things that I didn't even know about. And that's one great thing about working with a fiscal sponsor like the International Documentary Association, who sponsors reputable documentaries, is they work with us to develop our budget. So they're asking us about film insurance, the circuit for when it gets distributed in 3 to 5 years from now. Who's going to be composing your music? Like, what is that going to cost? Because you're going to have a music in a documentary. You're going to have an editor. You're going to have a sound editor. Because this isn't going to be
all the legal things.
Exactly. Yeah. This isn't going to be me making a YouTube video. Though, as we get funding, we'll be able to pay the editor to create some shorts that we can share on YouTube. But everything is going to be high quality, cinematic. But in order to do that, we have to fundraise because my funds are going to pay for the farm, and I'm trying to be the catalyst to help bring change for this.
The documentary has different aspirations, mainly to do education and advocacy.
Exactly.
And outreach to help change people's perceptions about what flower farming can be.
Yes. The only thing I really know for sure about this documentary, because when we bought this property, I had this dream that this would be a space that brings people together. I see this huge party, this big dinner party in the Dahlias, and the film ends with all of these people coming together because of flowers. And I want it to be this warm hug feeling at the end of the film. And I want people to have that film finish. And I want them to say, I am so in love with local flowers. I either need to go find my local flower farmer, figure out who they are so I can have flowers in my life. I'm going to go plant that seed in my backyard to grow flowers.
That's powerful. That's a beautiful vision. And it's so relatable. Everyone has to sit at a table and eat.
Exactly.
It's just, it happens to be in the Dahlia fields. They're
totally.
going to love that. So your first goal is the $20,000?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're initially fundraising for $20,000, which would allow us to create a trailer for the film. So like a 5 to 7 minute trailer is the goal, which will allow us to submit the project to larger film grants, also to larger donors to show what this project is about. It's sometimes hard if someone's not familiar with flowers to really visualize what it feels and looks like. And then, so a lot of those funds would be going towards paying an editor, a second cameraman, a lot of the logistics. And also, because of the amount of footage, we have been using our own hard drives, but they are full. And if we want to preserve this, we need backup. The hard drive and the backup for filming, which would be able to be sent down to LA to the editor to post-produce all of this, is about $3,500 just for that equipment alone.
So you're going to have some of these examples of what $2,000 is going to cover, what $3,500 is going to cover. And we're going to get the podcast out, this conversation, when you're ready to turn that on, which will be within the next maybe month or so, right?
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
That's great. I think why not? Let's open the door and invite people to come participate, and just the fun things that you've talked about, like perks. I think some people will be interested in.
I hope so. This will be our first round. We'll have some other perks if we have to do other rounds of fundraising. And I mean, I know money is tight. It's a tough time in the economy. If someone's able to give $5 to say they support local flowers, that's amazing. If someone's not able to contribute, but they're able to share the project, who knows who this might land with that is in a position to support it.
That's a wonderful thought. Yeah, like you gave me an idea of just talking with Michael of someone I want to introduce you to, because he mentioned his last documentary.
Yes.
So I think it is nice that, yes, it's great to raise money, but you also want to raise community support.
Absolutely.
Just to spread the word.
Yes.
Anything else you want to mention? I know we could talk forever, but and we've spent the whole day together already.
I know. Today has been so
fun.
I can't wait for you to come back when there's more blooms. I guess I just want to tell anyone that's in a tough season right now that hang in there. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. And if you don't have to have it all figured out. If you're feeling stuck, just take the next right step and trust that when you do that, the next right step will come. And if you just keep taking one step every day, you're going to look back and realize how far you've come.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been great.
So fun. I appreciate it.
I really am thrilled to share this with the Slow Flowers community. And thank you for being a member of the Slow Flowers community.
It's an honor. Thank you.